Let me just run to the restroom real quick, and then I will do that.
It took
Good morning, everyone.
months.
Good morning. We're going to begin. Thank you all for being here at the Advanced Technology Manufacturing Center here in Fall River. We're going to go. We'd like to go around the room and allow everyone to introduce themselves and to say a little bit about who they represent, the organization they represent. I'm Senator Michael Rodrigues, co-chair of the task force. Mayor.
Good morning, everybody. I'm John Mitchell. I'm the mayor of New Bedford.
And I'm Janet Ricciardi, the coordinator for SOCO.
Thank you, Janet. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to see everyone. We're going to try to move this right on the ayes have it. The minutes are approved. Well, Janet's got me first on the agenda to give a legislative update on housing and homelessness. And when I knew I was going to be on the agenda, I asked my staff to put together a few talking points, and I got 5 pages of notes. So I'm not going to go through all the notes, except to say that in the FY14 operating budget, a lot of focus was on homelessness issues. Very concerned about the home-based program. As many of you know, that's a program that has a 2-year time limit, and there were many families. This year, actually, 5,400 families were anticipated to time out of the program. So we did put some additional money into that program, also into RAFT, the Massachusetts Rental Voucher Program, over $15.5 million additional dollars in the MRVP program that created a little over 1,000 new subsidies, focused primarily on those families that are timing out of the home-based program. However, we know it's still not enough. We have many people in emergency shelters throughout the Commonwealth. Most of the folks in shelters are single mothers. As a matter of fact, 48% of those in emergency shelters are 12 years old or younger. Yes, 48%. So, that's a concern for all of us. That's really not a place that we want to have young people in Massachusetts living in. It's because of all of us working together, trying to utilize the precious resources that we have, dollars that we have, to try to affect this and to create a solution a sustainable solution that we can live with. The issue that I've been working on that is, although not directly related to housing and homelessness, but something that we find that many homeless individuals suffer from mental illness and substance abuse. We have a real problem throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts with outpatient mental health services. I know firsthand. I serve as a member of the board of directors at STAR, the Stanley Street Treatment and Resource Center here in Fall River, and we are bleeding money, as are all substance abuse and mental health clinics are bleeding money with outpatient mental health services to the tunes of tens of thousands of dollars a month that we're losing on these services, providing these services. Many of like kind outpatient clinics throughout the Commonwealth have already stopped providing these services because they just can't afford to do it anymore. So I'm working with a number of individuals throughout the Commonwealth to try to provide a better reimbursement rate for these services. Not that they're never going to make money. It's never going to be a profit center. It'll always be a loss. But at least so they're not bleeding so deeply that they're going to have to stop providing these services. We're hoping that when we do the final FY13 deficiency budget, so-called closeout budget for FY15, we'll be able to put some money into more resources for outpatient mental health services. Has anyone had any effects, seen the effects of that?
I'm just curious, like with the new healthcare reform, if there's some way that with the mental health parity law that's supposed to be taking effect, if anyone really has truly taken a real hard look at somehow displacing some of those costs that the state is now burdened with, and trying to bring it into, where it's fully reimbursed for a medical condition that it is. The mental health and the substance abuse stuff.
Medicare has created new billing codes. Now, I'm treading on ground that I'm not 100% versed in, but there are, I even forget the acronym, but there are certain codes on how you bill for services. So Medicare has approved a new set of codes for outpatient psychiatric services. We in Massachusetts have not adopted those codes yet. That is our game plan, is to adopt these codes. It's going to mean about a $10 million hit to the Mass Health line item. That would be 50% reimbursable through Medicare, so it would be a net $5 million hit to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That's exactly what we're looking at, is adopting those codes. And it's really mostly the public pay provide, those on Mass Health, Medicare, Medicaid, that's the problem. Many of the private insurers, because we do have the mental health parity law, do provide coverage. Although it's always a fight for providers in the clinics to fight with the third-party payers, to get the reimbursements. But the real problem is the public pay. And with a case like STAR, and I'm sure other smaller clinics throughout the Commonwealth, most of their clients are public pay clients. Okay. Any questions for me before I turn it?
Well, not a question, but I'd like to thank you for your support of the unaccompanied youth
Yes.
bill, because it
Right.
really, that little thing we talked about a couple of years ago has really
Right.
taken off, and I think it's going to make a huge difference for young adults, and it's getting an awful lot of support, so it's terrific, and you really sponsored that for us.
Well, and it has universal support, and the numbers, once again, were mind-boggling to me.
Right.
To see how many homeless, unaccompanied youth there actually were throughout the Commonwealth.
Absolutely, so
It was mind-boggling.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, we're going to find this to be very helpful for a population that really doesn't belong in shelters at all, that they're really, it's a system failure, is the way I refer to it. Many of these kids have been in the system since they've been youngsters, like young, and things just didn't work out, and so it's a good thing. So thanks for doing that.
Okay, well, we're going to turn it now. We'd like to hear from Janet, to overview of the South Coast Network and where we are and what we're focusing
I'm
on.
going to tag right on to the unaccompanied youth piece, and number one, there's an unaccompanied youth coalition meeting for South Coast tomorrow at Catholic Social Services, and Kelly Turley from the Mass Coalition for the Homeless will be there to talk about the Commission's report, and we're trying to figure out in Bristol County how we're coming up with a method, a way to count unaccompanied youth, and so we're going to look at the Commission's report, and we're going to start working diligently on how to do that and what that means for the South Coast. I will point out that Boston was one of 9 cities in the country that this past year had the opportunity to work nationally on an unaccompanied youth count, and some of that information, I will have that person who spearheaded that come to the next unaccompanied youth meeting. But I also want to commend Catholic Social Services in Arlene, because they opened the very first unaccompanied youth home here in Bristol County, Francis House in Fall River, and at the last time I talked to Steve, there were 6 young men there. It has room for 8, and Arlene worked to have that happen, and I know there were some stumbling blocks along the way.
But we have to, we'll pass the buck here. We have to really push over to Mike Dion on that one, because the city of Fall River is really a huge supporter of getting this up, and really without their support it wouldn't have happened. But I think we should point that it's been full, but the job is to stabilize kids, and so 2 of those youngsters that were there have gone on to their own apartments, and are 4 out of the 6 are at BCC. And doing very well, and the other 2, as far as I know, were going in for placement tests sometimes last week. And so it really is, I think, at least at this point, doing what it's supposed to do. And I think as a result of that, we've had some conversation, maybe it should go on here, Janet, and I'm sorry, my mother died, so I didn't have any time to get to you about this, so I've been a little preoccupied. But I think one of the things we want to talk about is whether or not, as a region, we should look at homeless, the unaccompanied youth, as being a regional venture rather than an independent, city-by-city thing, because it's really, the kids move between these cities all the time. And so to make it something that, for us as a South Coast Regional Network, and I have talked to Mike about this, I have not had the opportunity to talk to anyone else, but it could be something maybe we should put on the table here just for discussion.
Did you want to discuss that now, or do you want to?
It's up to you, it's your report, I'm sorry.
Well, why don't I move on with my report, and then we can come back to that if we have time. I just know that Steve wants to get over to the school opening. So the other things I wanted to, and my report basically, I wanted to let the mayors, just to inform the mayors about the work that we're doing. So one of the other things that the whole network has been working on is our Family Services Committee and Home Base. Home Base is a huge piece of what the work is that's happening with homelessness right now. And I saw Carl walk in. Carl and Community Care Services, Bonnie and Nancy, have been at the forefront of ensuring that families that are referred from DHC, is it from your office, Paulette, or from? Yes. Yeah. So it's from Paulette's office, that that homes are found for them and that they are moving forward in the system. So that's a huge chunk of the work that happens. And the Family Services Committee meets on a monthly basis, and the topic of conversation always at the top of the agenda is home-based, what's happening with home-based families. And we have a meeting in a couple of weeks, and the top of the agenda will be home-based families that have timed out and what's happening with those families. So that's another thing that we've worked on a lot in this region. A lot of work has gone into that. And all the other collaborating agencies have been right there supporting the home base. And Carl has something he wants to add. Let's let him.
I just wanted to add very quickly that an important component that we've launched in the last 6 months related to home bases. I think it's important for the mayors to hear this. Relates to supporting self-sufficiency among the home-based families, because that's really the solution to this. And so anyway, SOCO and South Shore Housing and Community Care Services have been working with Sir Jobs with money from the Fireman Foundation to target approaching 100 home-based families with a goal of placing 80 of those into sustaining employment. And that's going very well. Anyway, so Sir Jobs is sort of a key component to this sort of new emphasis that we've really wanted to get to right away, but we were so in over our head just getting people placed and so forth. It took a little while to get it off the ground, but with some private funds, we've been able to get that going. I think it's very promising, and we see it as.
I think it was like 20. The report I just got from firemen said there's 22 folks that are employed.
Yes, and I think we're up to 24 since that.
Can you talk a little bit about the program?
Yes, it's a program that targets home-based families who are ready, willing, and able to work. They are referred to the Secure Jobs program by the folks from Community Care Services who are working with home-based participants. And the goal is to get them job readiness skills, possibly short-term training, with the goal of sustainable employment. And the target is to serve 85 families from the Fall River, Taunton, New Bedford, and Attleboro areas. We've currently enrolled about 51 folks, and we have 24 people currently employed. And it's going well, and we're hoping we'll meet the goals. The goal is to place 80% of the families into sustainable jobs that they will hold for at least a year.
There's a kickoff event on September 27th. Details to follow.
Perfect example of great collaboration.
And this isn't to, rain on your parade. Great, I mean, it's great and it's wonderful, but our concern is obviously what happens to the other 400 families that aren't there, who aren't, who are falling off home base, who can't afford sustainability, don't have sustainability in their apartments, and what do we do with them? And that's really what's, that's the elephant in the room here. While we're doing all these other things, which is wonderful because those 100 people are taken care of, and we hope, and they go forward. But what about these other folks that don't have sustainability? And I think statewide we're talking 1,500 families, or is it 1,500 families?
In motels?
I think it's more than that.
No, that's in motels. It's 1,700 motels. How many families are falling out in October? 500.
Over the whole state?
Yeah.
Could be something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably around 1,500.
Right, so I think it's $1,500 all across, and we own a good portion of that, of those people that are falling out in October. And so what's the strategy around that, and what are we going to do? Because they're going to be in the mayor's offices telling them that they have nowhere to go, and we're going to be...
Some of them already are.
And
Well,
yeah.
we've been working with South Shore Housing, with the families who are timing out and trying to get to them before they time out, because they can use the household assistance funds of $1,000, or if they do need to go back to shelter, they can go back into shelter if they're eligible for that. And there's a whole process in place with DHCD and South Shore Housing to re-shelter them if necessary if they can't sustain. But still, like you
It's
said,
worrisome, it is. I mean,
Yeah.
I think Bonnie and Arlene are both right. We have some tools, thanks to the legislature, to help some of those families sustain in less than maybe ideal situations, because $4,000 doesn't buy a lot. But we're all kind of losing sleep over that issue, that really thousands of people will be timing out of this program.
currently we've only got 3 people returned to shelter, and we are, in this area, the $4,000 goes a lot further than, say, in the Boston area or other areas. So
That's absolutely true, but we haven't hit our cusp is October,
yeah.
and which is lovely, just before the holidays, and
That one you think away a little bit?
that is when it's going to get
October,
started.
November.
And we have a
October, November.
sustainability issue, for instance, in emergency shelter money, we cannot use ESG money if there's no sustainability. So that part of money is now off the table as being a resource for people who are going to become homeless. And because you've got to prove sustainability. So while we've got this $4,000, which will buy first security deposit, might get us through February, it's still going to be in front of us. It's still it's a make-believe, as I call it. It's just a make-believe thing. It's smoke and mirrors. It doesn't go away. We haven't solved it. And the solution is we need more vouchers. We need to have more Section 8. We need to have more, RFIP that are affordable, because we can't make money where it doesn't exist. Somebody has $500, they can't afford the $800 apartment.
And in the long run, that would be cheaper than putting families in motels.
I mean, this is what we all complained about 5 years ago when we started this little process. That sustainability was still the problem, and it was like on deaf ears, so we just kept pouring money with no end result. And the end result was still we need to create affordable units, or affordable access to affordable units, or whatever, vouchers or whatever we needed in order for these folks to be able to afford to stay. Some people, I always say the poor will always be with us. And we need to figure out how we deal with that concept and not make believe that we're going to be able to train everybody and give them affordable, sustainable wages, because it's not going to happen. So what do we do? How do we bite the bullet, and how do we make that happen? And say, okay, if we've got these 1,500 people, we should be producing 1,500 vouchers. Somehow, that's going to be a lot cheaper than paying for motels. That's it, I think. Sorry.
That's okay,
I mean, the dilemma, just to make it, well, you want to go on with your report, sorry, but you create the vouchers. Yeah, I mean, you create the vouchers to get people out of the motels, and then you inadvertently send the message that the way to get a voucher is to get yourself into the motel. And we keep saying that's not the way to do it, but then we keep anyway. So just in fairness to the policymakers, every solution has unintended consequences. That's part of the problem. But anyway.
That's late plans.
Yep. But let Janet get on with her happy.
My report so we can hear from the mayors, because that's why most of us came here, is to listen to the mayors. And Steve, and Mike, sorry. I don't know where Steve came from. So the other thing, this past year, we've had 2 Project Homeless Connects, one in Taunton, and Mayor Hoy was at that one, and then one in Fall River that Mayor Flanagan was at. So the one in Fall River, Mary Camara from the Office of Community Development in Fall River heads up with Rosa Maderas out of Stepping Stone, and that one has happened every year for the past 4 years. And we've had 2 in the Taunton-Attleboro area, one in Attleboro 2 years ago, and then this one in Taunton this past year. So in Bristol County, we've now had 4 Project Homeless Connects, and we're actually most active in that area, and I'm really proud of that. Springfield was the first city in the state to have a Project Homeless Connect, and Fall River was the second.
And you're talking about
Statewide, yes, statewide. So Fall River was the second. So it was, it makes me feel proud that we're providing that service. We usually have about 150, 200 folks that show up. Over the 6 that we've done, we've probably provided over 300 IDs. People can't, even if they're in shelter, they need to have an ID. And IDs cost $25. And United Way and St. Vincent de Paul have supported that effort throughout the Bristol County area. And we've provided all kinds of services. We provide breakfast. I know Bay Coast Bank has provided breakfast. Attleboro Council of Churches has provided breakfast at the other 2. And then the school department does the lunches for Fall River, and I can't remember who did the lunches for Attleboro Taunton. Well, once the La Salette Shrine did them, and then I don't know.
Now we had Olive Garden.
Olive
Olive Garden did pasta and salad and vegetables. So we have a soup kitchen. But the last one is the council and church. Council and church is just with me.
So those are a great endeavor and a great opportunity for folks who are homeless or at risk of homelessness to come together and find out about all kinds of social services. Social Security is there, the veterans are there, all kinds of medical and mental health services. We usually have vans there to do shots and testing, and then we had family planning. I don't know, am I missing anybody important?
Dental hygienist.
The dental hygienist. That was awesome, those dental hygienists. But anyways, those have been great successes. And then just a little bit on money and where we're sustainability here. We just received, and I don't see Bob Horn in the room, but we just received $7,500 for SOCO sustainability from United Way of Greater Fall River. United Way Greater Attleboro Taunton supports SOCO to the tune of about $15,000 a year, and United Way Greater New Bedford does about $5,000 a year. So the United Way support in this section of the state has been overwhelmingly. I call on all of those agencies every single day to help me find housing or transportation or whatever they might need, services for their children in the Bristol County area. So I think it's important for the mayors to know that this is a great collaboration. It's been going now for about 5 years, and I hope it has the opportunity to continue, because in other parts of the state they have disbanded their networks due to lack of funding, but I'm out there every day pounding the pavement for that. So I'll shut up and give the meeting back to Senator Rodriguez.